Here is a list of the most compelling comments we've received in the last 5 days. Want to get in on it? Leave a constructive and positive comment below to increase your chances. Bride paralyzed in car accident stuns her guests when she walks down the aisle. Life really is too short, and it's ever so important that we value each and every day that we're given on this earth. You never know what's around the corner. Life is full of unexpected surprises, both good and bad, and so it's important that we make the most of everything life may throw at us. A wedding is one of the most important days in anyone's lives. For a bride, walking down the aisle is a feeling you dream of your whole life. But what about if that chance is taken away from you? There are some people in the world whose lives are turned upside down by a tragic accident. However, more often than not, these people who had so much taken away from them actually turn their lives around and instead make things happen for themselves no matter how much is holding them back. This is the story of a Canadian woman named Jennifer Darman, who after a tragic car accident was told she'd never walk again. Jennifer turned her pain into strength, shocking her wedding guests and proving to herself and the rest of the world that all it takes is dedication to make things happen.
Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story.
Jennifer Darman was just your average woman. She was a happy person working as a bank teller in Windsor, Canada. She started to notice a man come in rather often, and he'd always wait in line until her cashier was the one available. His name was Bark Belowetz, and he thought she was stunning. For weeks, he was trying to muster up the courage to ask Jennifer out on a date. Luckily, Jennifer thought he was rather cute, and his persistence made her smile. The two eventually started dating, and they began falling deeper and deeper in love. Their relationship was going from strength to strength until one fateful day in 2008 would change everything forever. While on a road trip with their friends, Jennifer and Mark got into a horrible car accident after their vehicle was struck by an oncoming van head-on. The crash would be heard from miles away. Luckily, everyone from each vehicle survived. However, Jennifer was seriously injured. As the rest tried to pull themselves out of the car, Jennifer couldn't move. She tried to move her body, but she felt stuck.
Everyone pretty much seemed to find their own ways out of the van. Jen was unable to.
She started to panic, screaming out for help from her boyfriend Mark. After managing to pull himself out of the car, he rushed over to the other side of the car to help Jennifer. Luckily, Mark was a paramedic and had been for years. He knew how to cope with this type of situation, so he remained calm and helped Jennifer out as much as he could before more help came. Jennifer was crying and screaming, telling Mark she couldn't move. She couldn't feel her legs at all. She started to get herself into a hysterical fit of panic, not knowing what was going on or what was happening. Mark's instinct kicked in. He needed to do something. He ran his finger down Jennifer's spine to check to see if there were signs of any obvious damage, and what he feared the most happened. Jennifer was seriously injured, and this was about to change her life forever. Mark wasn't 100% sure, but from what he could tell from her spine, it felt as though it was fractured. Jennifer continued to cry out in pain, but finally more help came. Mark knew from experience that she shouldn't be touched or removed from the vehicle without professional help, so he stood by her side the whole time as she was transferred to the ambulance by the paramedic team. It was heartbreaking to see Jennifer in that state. The couple was driven to the nearby hospital together, and Mark held her hand the entire time. Although he felt thankful she was alive, he knew that something was seriously wrong. After a short journey, they finally arrived at the hospital. After fearing the worst, Jennifer and Mark's biggest fears became a reality. After some tests, the doctors told Jennifer that her spinal cord was severely damaged and she'd never walk again. Her whole life disappeared before her very eyes. She was heartbroken. Jennifer ended up being in the hospital for a long time. Days turned into weeks, and those weeks turned into months. If Jennifer's health was going to get better, she needed the best treatment possible. She started using a wheelchair too, and although this was a hard thing to get used to, Jennifer knew she had to accept her life would never be the same again. The car accident had changed their lives forever, and Jennifer had to adjust to a new life being paralyzed.
I remember just crying because it was so frustrating because I had no trust in my legs anymore.
Using a wheelchair was harder than Jennifer could have ever expected. She'd always been an active girl, and so it was very hard to adjust to. Mark and Jennifer's continued relationship was a rock to Jennifer. They'd been together for 2 years, and although looking after Jennifer now took a lot of time and energy, Mark was still committed to taking care of the woman he loved. Jennifer wasn't in this alone. They'd come to terms with the accident together as one. However, Jennifer started to feel insecure. Her life had completely changed, and not only had it made her life difficult, but Mark's life had now been turned upside down too. Although she knew Mark loved her dearly, she couldn't help but let her mind wander and think that her condition was taking a toll on their relationship. Mark was essentially now her carer, and Jennifer felt awful about this. This wasn't what their fairy tale romance was meant to be. However, Jennifer had no reason at all to feel insecure and worried about the effect it had on Mark. If anything, the accident made him realize how much he loved and cared about her. There was no doubt in his mind she was the woman he wanted to marry. He would take care of her for the rest of his life, and on the couple's 4-year anniversary, Mark decided to show this commitment to Jennifer and surprised her by proposing. With a huge smile on her face and tears in her eyes, Jennifer, of course, said yes. However, there was one other thing on her mind. If she was going to get married, she was also going to do everything in her power to make sure that she walked down the aisle. Somehow, some way. To her, walking down the aisle with her father was one of the most important moments in her life, so there was no way she was going to roll down it in a wheelchair. She made this vow to herself and committed to intense therapy to ensure that by the time the big day came around, she'd be able to walk. After speaking to experts, her best chances came with physical therapy, and that's exactly what she decided to do. Jennifer and Mark would attend a 3-hour physical therapy session 3 times a week, and this was located in a rehab center 45 minutes away. Her commitment was a tough challenge, but nothing was going to stop her. Jennifer had to have several major surgeries too. The vow she made herself was undoubtedly going to be painful and hard work, but Jennifer was a strong woman. There was no choice but to keep her head up and carry on. Cheryl Angelei, a spokesperson at a rehab center, told the press that she was one of the most committed patients she'd ever seen. She added that her attendance was better than any client on the program, and her determination was what got her through. Months of therapy was finally starting to pay off. Progress was extremely slow, but there was no doubt that Jennifer was beginning to achieve her dreams of walking again. Months turned into a whole year, and finally, Jennifer and Mark's big day arrived. She wanted the day to be as special as possible, and so she wore a beautiful flowing lace gown that covered her leg braces. This was hopefully going to be the day that Jennifer proved miracles can and do happen. Her moment was about to happen. Her year of hard work was hopefully about to pay off. This moment wasn't just about being able to walk again. This was about proving to everyone that anything can happen if you try hard enough.
I will be walking down that aisle. It's not an if or a maybe, it is absolutely going to happen.
The guests were sitting anxiously in the ceremony hall waiting for Jennifer to make her entrance. However, the most anxious person in the room was Mark. Standing at the front of the altar, he couldn't wait for the doors to open so he could see his beautiful bride. The doors finally swung open and Mark saw Jennifer standing there looking more beautiful than he could ever imagine. She began walking down the aisle to Edwin McGay's Walk With You playing in the background, and all the guests couldn't help but applaud. Jennifer was accompanied by her father and brother, who all walked arm in arm linked onto Jennifer with pride. The other guests couldn't believe what they were seeing, and this was the happiest moment of Mark's life. Jennifer's therapy had paid off. She was able to walk down the aisle thanks to the help of leg braces and a metal walker. But the most important reason as to why she was able to walk was the incredible dedication she had at every single therapy session. Jennifer told herself that she was going to walk again, and that's exactly what she did. This was the proudest moment of Jennifer's life. She'd finally achieved her goal. There are usually a few tears shed at a wedding, but this was different. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Jennifer has since called the moment unforgettable, explaining how it was so special for everyone to see the end results of her hard work. She went on to say that the moment she saw Mark standing at the altar made all the pain over the last couple of years completely worth it. As he linked arms with his daughter, Jennifer's father was full of joyous pride, and her brother found it hard to fight back the tears too. All of her loved ones were so incredibly proud of her and the things she achieved since the accident. Although it was a tragedy that should never happen to anybody, Jennifer's sheer determination proves that good things can actually come out of terrible ones. She had managed to walk down the aisle and make her family proud. One thing we can be sure of is Jennifer is certainly one tough cookie, and there's no one more proud of her than her husband Mark.
Watching Jen walk down the aisle, I didn't think that Jen could get any more beautiful.
He explained how he was so proud of the accomplishment she set out to achieve, adding that the icing on top of the cake was that everyone they know and love was there to witness it. The bride herself wanted to thank one particular person, and that was her groom Mark. She told the press, "I let him know a few times that he didn't have to stay with me if it was something he didn't want to do." Jennifer quite obviously understood how hard it might have been for Mark's life to change forever too, but nonetheless, Mark's love for Jennifer was what mattered most. There was no way that he was ever going to leave her. Jennifer and Mark's wedding took place in 2011, and the ceremony was even filmed by the news broadcasters of ABC. After they released the story, their wedding video went viral, and ABC's YouTube upload has since garnered over 410,000 views. There are also many comments sharing their support for Jennifer and Mark, describing how they're all personally touched and feel grateful that they wanted to share their story. Jennifer has become an inspiration to so many. Speaking to the press, Jennifer explained why she was so determined to walk down the aisle despite all the odds. She commented saying, "The car accident we had made me realize something. It made me realize that if there's something in this world you want to do, you need to make sure that you do it while you can. We only get one shot in this world, and if you have people close to you, let them know what you want and let them help you along the way. What an incredible attitude to have. Jennifer's story is absolutely incredible. It tells the tale of one woman who was able to turn her pain and heartbreak into something wonderfully inspiring. We're sure that her story has helped a lot of other people too. It takes a lot of bravery to go through what she's gone through, but come out of the other side a stronger woman. Jennifer is certainly full of resilience and courage, and we wish her and her husband Mark all the happiness in the world.
If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone who may find it interesting too. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.